Hey, I'm Amelia Mosley and you're watching BTN. Thanks for hanging out with us again. Let's see what's coming up on today's show. We find out about the race to keep Victoria's hens healthy, learn about the history of blood donations, and ask whether machines can really make art. All that soon, but first, let's head over to the United States, where Donald Trump has become the first US president to be convicted of a crime. Michelle found out what happened and what it means for the upcoming US election.
We are looking at count 1, guilty. Count 2, guilty. Count 3, guilty.
I'm so pleased that there's finally some accountability for Donald Trump.
Count 10, guilty. Count 11, guilty.
He's an innocent man. These people are too afraid to speak the truth.
Count 28, guilty.
Yep, Donald Trump made history, and not in a good way.
Count 33 and 34, guilty.
Now, you've probably all got some questions.
Is Trump an acronym? What does it stand for?
What's this trial all about?
Let's start with that one.
You see, back in the lead up to the 2016 election, Donald Trump gave money, through his lawyer, to a woman he'd had an affair with while he was married to his wife Melania, and made her agree not to tell anyone. There's actually nothing illegal about that, but Mr. Trump lied on official documents about how the money was being used, and that's a crime.
Doesn't sound like a serious crime.
Well, some people say it wasn't. Mr. Trump says he was only prosecuted because some people don't want him to win the election.
This was a rigged trial by a conflicted judge who was corrupt.
But others say a crime is a crime. The district attorney who brought about the case said Mr. Trump was treated fairly, and the crime was serious because it was done
to conceal a scheme to corrupt the 2016 election.
Okay, next question.
Will Trump go to jail?
The judge will decide his punishment on the 11th of July, and the maximum sentence is 4 years in jail. But experts say it's not very likely Mr. Trump will get that, because he didn't have a criminal record until now.
Likely, Mr. Trump will receive a non-custodial term and possibly a fine.
There is a possibility that the judge could put restrictions on where Mr. Trump can travel, which could get in the way of his campaigning.
What campaigning? Is he still running?
Can he still be president?
Even if he ends up behind bars, Donald Trump could still run for president. In fact, in 1920, a candidate named Eugene Debs ran for president from prison, and he got 3% of the vote.
Will this affect how people vote?
That is a very good question.
It's pretty good.
Well, some people say a lot of Americans will be put off by the idea of voting for a criminal. And this isn't the last of Mr. Trump's legal problems. He's got 3 criminal court cases to come, all for more serious charges, which involve his handling of classified documents and alleged role in trying to change the 2020 election result. But these probably won't go to court before the election in November. And in any case, some people say this.
Even if Trump goes to jail, gets out, or gets bail, or whatever, we're all going to vote for Trump still. It's not going to... How's it going to change my mind?
And what if he wins? Could he get rid of all of this?
Well, that's another great question that we don't really know the answer to yet. Some say Mr. Trump could clear himself legally as president. But that's never happened before, and a lot of top legal experts are trying to figure out what the rules are. In the meantime, Mr. Trump is going to appeal this decision, and says he's going to leave it to the public to decide whether he should have the top job.
Do you know who this is? It's Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India, a job that he's managed to hang on to after the country's recent election, but not as easily as many were predicting. Australia's minimum wage has gone up. As of the 1st of July, how much will people over the age of 21 earn per hour? Is it $16.10, $20.10 or $24.10? Australia's new minimum wage is $24.10. The world has marked the 80th anniversary of the Normandy landings in World War II, which was also known as what? D-Day, VE Day or C-Day? It was D-Day. The D-Day landing was the biggest seaborne invasion in history. Around 160,000 Allied troops crossed the English Channel to invade German-occupied France, helping to turn the tide of the war.
Today we remember the bravery of those who crossed the sea to liberate Europe.
My thoughts today are with those who fell.
A Chinese spacecraft has just collected rocks from which hard-to-get place? Is it Mars, an asteroid, or the far side of the moon? It's the far side of the moon. Chang'e is the first spacecraft to collect rocks from the part of the moon that faces away from us. And which of these paintings won this year's Archibald Prize? It was C, which is a portrait of Tim Winton by Laura Jones. Now over to Victoria, where the race is on to contain an outbreak of bird flu. It's having a big impact on chicken farmers and on people trying to buy eggs in supermarkets. Thomas found out more.
Let's go, my friends, off to the grass.
I love a lot of things about my farm. I love the green grass, I love the people, I love the chickens.
Josh here is a big fan of chickens.
People are always surprised how chickens kind of want to be around you, right? They have this dog-like quality where they just kind of want to hang out.
In fact, he's been farming them since he was still at school and has managed to build up a successful business selling eggs from his flock of 40,000.
I started Joshua Rainbow Eggs when I was 9 with the goal of making some pocket money. It's very simple. And over the last 14 years, the business has obviously grown a lot and our goals have changed to reflect that. We want to provide nourishment for the community and do the right thing.
But right now, farms like Josh's are facing a big threat.
An egg farm has been forced into quarantine.
An outbreak was confirmed at a poultry farm.
An outbreak of bird flu.
2 different strains of bird flu have been found on farms in Victoria. H7N3 and H7N9, both highly contagious and deadly for chickens.
You see, humans aren't the only ones who can get the flu. You right there, little buddy? Bird flu is a kind of influenza, similar to the type that can make humans sick around this time of year. But unlike us, treating these guys isn't as simple as a trip to the doctor.
In bad outbreaks like these, farmers can be forced to cull their animals to make sure the flu doesn't spread any further.
Bird flu is amongst the most serious threats our industry faces. There's a lot of really good people out there who have lost their livelihoods.
Luckily, Josh's farm hasn't been affected, but it's already having a big impact on the industry and on customers. In fact, over the weekend, some supermarkets have brought in limits on how many eggs you can buy.
I think that you're already seeing it right now. Next time you go to the grocery store, have a look at the shelf and you'll see a fair fewer eggs.
Bird flu isn't a new thing. We've known about it since 1878. For a long time, it was known as fowl plague. But in 1955, it was discovered to be a type A influenza virus. It's spread by wild birds, and there are lots of different strains. At the moment, a highly contagious strain called H5N1 is wreaking havoc in Asia, Europe, and the Americas. And while it hasn't reached Australia, it is affecting birds in the world's most remote continent, Antarctica.
We're sort of in uncharted territory in a sense of this. It's sort of the first time this has happened, but it was something that, yeah, we predicted.
And it's not just birds. Bird flu can actually be transmitted to other animals, and occasionally it can even be transmitted to humans.
H5N1 has been found in foxes, squirrels, and in the United States it's recently been affecting cows. That's a worry because when viruses spread between different animals, they adapt and could become more likely to affect humans. And although the World Health Organization says the virus only poses a low risk to people, authorities are keeping a close eye on the situation. But some good news is that you can't catch bird flu by eating chicken or eggs.
It's very important to remember in every recorded case of human avian influenza, we've got prolonged exposure to sick birds.
And some more good news is that scientists are working on vaccines for the dangerous strains of bird flu.
Off to the grass.
But for now, farmers like Josh are working to keep their chickens as safe as possible.
You want to make sure nothing's getting out to the chickens in the paddock. So that means all the vehicles that come onto the farm are sanitized, they're parked in a separate spot, and they're kept separate away from anything that's going out to the field.
Hi BTN, we're watching you
This Friday is World Blood Donor Day. It was created by the World Health Organization 20 years ago to recognise how important blood donors are to medicine. So Michelle rolled up her sleeve and learnt all about the history of blood donations. Check it out.
Here in Australia, donating blood is pretty common. In fact, a few BTN reporters have rolled up their sleeves over the years.
And you don't even know the needle's gone in.
It's a little squeezy for your hand.
Thank you. And today, it's my turn.
Have a seat. So just put this on.
And while the idea of using your blood to potentially save the life of someone you've never met might seem normal, it hasn't always been that way. For a long time, blood was very misunderstood. We knew we needed it, and if you lost too much, that was bad. The idea of taking blood from one person and giving it to another, a process called transfusion, well, that took a while. If we go way back to the 15th century, there are stories about people trying to transfuse blood by drinking it. And spoiler, it didn't end well for anyone involved, but no one really knew any better. It wasn't until 1628 in Europe that a man named William Harvey worked out how blood circulated, being pumped by the heart through arteries and veins. Not long after that, a French physician named Jean-Baptiste Denis tried transferring blood from an animal to a human. That didn't end well either, and the entire process was outlawed across Europe. More than a century later, Dr. William Halsted successfully completed the first emergency blood transfusion in the US. His sister had lost a lot of blood in childbirth, so he quickly inserted a needle into his arm, drawing out his own and transferring it to her. And after a few minutes, she started to recover. But that was pretty lucky. It only worked because Dr. Halsted and his sister happened to have the same blood type. If you ever donate blood, you'll find out what your blood type is because it's a crucial element of making blood transfusions work. There are 8 main blood types, and they all have different kinds of antigens, which are part of our immune response when we get sick. If different types of blood are mixed together, they form clots because of these antigens, and that can kill people. But that wasn't discovered until 1900 by an Austrian physician named Karl Landsteiner. Although there are stories of the Inca doing successful blood transfusions centuries before that, which may have been because there wasn't a lot of mixing between groups of people, and many in the region had the same blood type. Even after we discovered blood types, it was a long time before we worked out how to do this. Until the early 20th century, transfusions could only happen directly from person to person. That's because blood begins to clot almost immediately after coming into contact with air, which is actually pretty handy if you're injured, but not so handy if you want to store blood. But in 1916, a pair of American scientists found a way to stop blood from clotting. The discovery came just in time for World War I. Portable boxes were created to take blood that had been donated to wounded soldiers on the battlefields. After the war, these boxes became the inspiration for the modern-day blood bank. Now there are blood banks all around the world, so there's supply for when we need it, and 1 in 3 of us will over our lifetime. But to keep up with demands, just here in Australia, we need more than 29,000 blood donations every week. And that's why the World Health Organization created Blood Donor Day, to recognise the importance of donors and to celebrate the medical discoveries that have saved so many lives around the world.
Which blood type is sometimes called the universal donor because it's the least likely to react if it mixes with another blood type? Is it A positive, AB negative, or O negative? It's O negative. In an emergency, O negative blood can be given to anyone if their matching blood type is in short supply. Sony has just announced it's going to start using artificial intelligence to help make movies and TV shows. That's got a lot of filmmakers and other creative workers worried about the future of their jobs. But can AI really replace humans when it comes to making art? Ren investigates.
And the Oscar goes to Batrina 67 for the Botby movie.
Oh my goodness, if I had tear ducts, I might just cry.
Okay, while the robot Oscars might seem far-fetched, the idea of movies made by machines is not as wacky a concept as you might think.
We will be looking at ways to use AI to produce both film for theaters and television.
Yep, this is the CEO of one of the biggest film studios in the world, and they're going to start using AI. Why? To save money.
The biggest problem with making films today is the expense.
While we don't exactly know how Sony will be using AI just yet, lots of companies are already using it in many stages of the movie-making process, from script writing to video editing to CGI generation. There's even a movie coming out at the end of this year that has entirely AI-generated visuals.
Maybe you're the dark, mysterious kind of man who never shows his vulnerability.
This kind of thing is what a lot of people have been afraid of, both in Hollywood and other creative industries. From writers to photographers to painters to musicians.
Thank you to Bip Bop and Boop, who wrote the beautiful soundtrack behind Botby.
Yep, AI is quickly becoming pretty good at doing things we once thought only humans could do.
So when you start talking about robots making art, it gets really, really interesting.
Rad is a journalist who made a whole show about whether AI could be as creative as people. And she reckons that, at the moment, we humans still have the upper hand.
It's important to remember that AI doesn't actually have creativity. In fact, it can't actually think. AI, literally at the moment, is basically just guessing like the next word in the sentence or the next pixel that would be, next to the other pixel.
You see, before AI can create anything, it has to learn from us. Programs like these are trained on our words, videos, and images. And this has made a lot of artists angry.
We need to talk about AI art.
My work has been stolen.
Someone trained an AI to copy and replicate my personal art style without my permission.
But some argue we humans learn in a pretty similar way. Every time we create something new, we're drawing from stuff we've already learned from reading books, watching movies, having conversations. So, is AI any different?
I think there are some people that do think AI is being creative and then a lot who don't. And that's a really big philosophical question that I'm excited that we're talking about because AI has come onto the scene.
So what does that mean for people with creative jobs, like me? Well, while some are worried we might be replaced by Batrina 67s, others say AI will just change the way we do our jobs. Some even say it could give more people the tools they need to make really cool stuff, or inspire us to use our human imaginations in new ways. Whatever happens, we may have to get used to sharing the stage with machines.
And most of all, I'd like to thank all you humans out there. Botby was made by all of us.
The Battle of the Blues and the Maroons is now well underway, with the first men's State of Origin game delivering a massive upset for the home ground heroes, New South Wales. The Blues had some promising breakthroughs, but couldn't keep up with the Maroons' charge, ending the match down 38-10. Meanwhile, in Newcastle, a record crowd braved wet weather to see the women's second game, and it was a thriller. Both teams were neck and neck until the dying minutes, when Queensland's Lauren Brown booted a 69th minute field goal, tipping the Maroons to an 11-10 victory. The win levels the series 1-1, which means we get to see the first Game 3 in the history of the Women's Origin later this month. Buckle up for the 2024 Finke Desert Race.
Oh no!
It's known around the world as Australia's toughest off-road contest. And this year's winner was Bo Robinson, clinching his first ever victory with a time of 3 hours, 28 minutes and 45 seconds. And if you add on another 40 minutes and 15 seconds, that's how long it took Carlos Alcaraz to defeat Alexander Zverev in 5 sets at the men's singles French Open final. The win makes Alcaraz the youngest male player to win Grand Slam titles on 3 surfaces. And in the women's comp, Iga Swiatek claimed her 3rd straight French Open crown, defeating Jasmine Paolini and continuing her reign as the world's top women's singles player.
Now, if you're 12, you probably don't know how to drive a car yet. But Lana from Brisbane is learning how to drive cars really, really fast. She's been selected to take part in a really prestigious training program for the future female champions of Formula One. Check it out.
She's fast, she's fearless, and she's ready
to be the first female Formula One champion.
At 12 years old, Lana's become one of just 6 young women from around the world, handpicked to take part in a driver development program called More Than Equal. It was started by 13-time Grand Prix winner David Coulthard, who wanted to find the world's very first female Formula One champion. You see, while women have been part of motorsports for a long time, the last woman to actually race in Formula One was Lila Lombardi, way back in 1976. Today, most drivers are male. In fact, only about 1.5% of licensed motorsport drivers are women, even though motorsport is actually one of the few sports where men and women can compete against each other. Experts say that's not because girls can't race well, but because they aren't given the same opportunities, and they don't have as many female role models. Plus, these girls say they face a lot of discrimination.
I think one of the biggest things you have to deal with as a girl, especially coming up through karting and as you progress into cars, is the comments that you receive around the paddock on social media.
Some boys are supportive, other boys aren't. Most of them take me out and bully me.
That's something More Than Equal, and this group of talented girls want to change.
Most people are like, oh yeah, it's not a girl sport, it's a boy sport, but like they've got lots of girl programs to help girls get up to that stage.
I think we need more girls in Formula One and in motorsport because we are all equal, and I mean we should get the same chances.
I'm there because I'm talented, I'm good enough to do this, and I do it because I love it.
We're all more than equal.
So, to support these girls and get them up to speed, the program is giving them world-class training at camps like this.
We're not touching anything on the side.
There's a plate on the floor that moves.
So they too can learn all the tricks.
We learned how to drift, as usually when I attempted drifting, I would just slide and spin, but this time I learned how to control it.
I just think I've got to be smooth, I've got to hit my markers, I've got to brake at this point, I've got to keep focus.
And they've all got their sights set high.
My ambitions are to be famous in motorsport. The #1 aim is Formula One, of course.
My ambition, the top one, is to be an F1 world champion, but it is also to be a role model for the girls that are in the position that I am now.
I want to be the first female to win the championship.
Now, way to go, Lana. We'll keep an eye out for you on the podium soon. Well, that's it for us this week, but we'll be back with more next Tuesday. In the meantime, you can check out our website, download our teacher resources if you're a teacher, and Newsbreak will be right here every weeknight to keep you up to date. Have a great week and I'll see you soon. Bye.